We're live on YouTube. Nice. So this is Ataraxia through Aporia, words I will define. Okay. It's the story of Qualia School, a school that I co-founded. We're now in our 6th year. We're in Calabasas. We're an independent school, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, but first, who am I? My name is John Cassie. I'm, like I said, one of the founders of Qualia School. I have been a gamer since I was, right, it's like the only thing I've ever been totally committed to, into, you know. I have been game mastering tabletop role-playing games since 1979, when I was 12. And as an educator, I've used games and game methods and game-based learning methods, et cetera, since I started. And this is my 29th year in independent school education. I've written books, I've written book chapters, you know, I've given presentations on game-based learning, gamified instruction, and I have written books for game masters on doing things like building realistic cultures or making clerics make sense, or, you know, making loot that makes sense, right? Not just, you know, a random sword or gold pieces or whatever. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, okay? Now, Qualia School is a mission-driven, small, intentionally small, independent school. We're in Calabasas. And our values, I'm going to talk about, you know, at length, but what we really do is serve students who are gifted, highly gifted, gifted adjacent, right? Curious kids who want, you know, what we, you know, kind of uniquely have to offer, okay? When we talk in our professional learning groups on campus about what education is or what it should be or what it looks like, we're often talking about these ideas as things that we're not looking for, right? We don't want that picture, right? We want students to be co-creators. We want students to be active collaborators in the process of learning, the process of building classes, in the process of doing the work. We're not really about orderliness, okay? And if you've ever done game-based learning in your classrooms, you know that a game-based learning classroom is going to be, it's going to feel a little more loose, right, than one where the teacher is the one sort of in charge, right? We don't really care about coverage, right? Lots of schools, when they choose between depth or breadth and depth, choose a breadth of focus. We always choose a depth of focus, okay? And we want the work to be meaningful, not heavy, right? So we'll often say to students that, you know, you'll get homework, but it won't be of the same length or the same type or what have you, right? You know, in a math class, a high school teacher might give just one problem, but it's really hard. And we'll say, work this problem for 20 minutes at home. You won't get an answer, right? But what I want is for you to have worked it in some meaningful way. Then bring it back to class the next time, and we'll talk about your strategies for trying to solve it without the expectation that you do, right? We find that that really works. Yeah. Now, what should we be looking for? Originality of thinking. Aporia, here's the first word to define for you, okay? Anyone know this word? No? Okay. So it's a Greek philosophical term, okay? Enthusiastic discomfort, excitement about not knowing, a desire while not knowing to jump into the deep end, okay? A commitment to confusion or uncertainty, okay? That's what aporia is. That's what we're going for every day in our classrooms. We want students to feel like not only, I don't really get it, but that's cool, right? And I like the fact that I don't get it, and I'm not anxious about it. I'm in my place of kind of active discomfort, right? We want that. We want students to be focused on the process. So we de-emphasize the product. Okay. Students write papers. They do projects that come from mathematics. They do laboratories in science. They do all of those things, okay? But what we grade is the process by which they've done it. A product at the end might not be objectively great, but if it represents an operatic attempt and the student has put in proper work and commitment, you'll get a good grade, right? Because what's being measured is that process, okay? And we'll talk about engagement, in a few minutes. Okay. So, every independent school has a mission. This is ours. Okay. Now, what you should be looking for in any school's mission is some keywords that you can orient instruction to or your program to. Okay. Autonomy, balance, curiosity, self-direction, self-respect. Dignity, local and global concerns, interconnectedness. Those are those things that we care about. So when I, as a school leader, am saying to you, right, okay, well, I want to read this, okay, connect it to the mission for me, okay? Why that, okay? And if you can connect it, the kids will be able to connect it, right? Both in our middle school, we're grades 5 through 12, okay? Both in our middle school and in our high school, courses are collaboratively designed. Democratic design is part of our core values, okay? Last year, I taught high school English, and I had a couple of students come to me and say, we really want to do classics and medieval. Can I have a degree in classics? Fine, I can do classics. You know, what does that mean, right? We want to read some Greek stuff. Okay, great. How about, and I proposed some plays. That sounds great, okay. I said, you guys are really very sophisticated readers. How would you feel about doing Dante? Okay, all of it, not Inferno, like all of it. Purgatorio and Paradiso, okay? Inferno is pretty easy. Purgatorio is harder, but the last time I taught it, teenagers loved it, and they did again, right? So I think teenagers really riff on the struggles that the souls in Purgatorio. Paradiso is a piece of Christian medieval theology. It's bewilderingly impossible. I said, do you want that? Yes. I didn't design it, they designed it. Right? They picked the plays. I picked Dante, but only when they said yes, right? I am not unique in this way, okay? Every teacher at Qualia is doing the same kind of thing, okay? part of our core values. So, who are our kids? We enroll about 50. Full, 75. Okay? So, you might see the term micro school in some of your reading. That's what we are. Okay? In order to maintain small class sizes, a big class for us would have 10. 5, 6, perfectly normal, okay? There's no back row. There's nowhere to hide. And you have to carry your part of the work if you're in a class with 6 or 8 or even 10, right? Our students are driven by internally motivated concerns, in part because they're the ones deciding what they're going to be reading, or, you know, or the approach in science, or what have you, or the projects they're doing in math, right? So, core values, Jess. We talked about Aporia, Jess. Here's an example of a seminar, okay? That's a full class. They're doing chemistry. Okay, this particular group is doing chemistry. I don't know exactly what they're doing, okay? But they're doing some kind of chemistry lesson because Jim here, my co-founder, teaches chemistry, okay? Great ideas. All students at Qualia take philosophy, grades 5 through 12. Middle school students take a course called Toolkit, where they're introduced to the ways that philosophers think. It's not the history of philosophy, right? But using classic thought experiments, right? Trolley problem, the problem of qualia. Do you know the qualia problem? Okay, it's about subjectivity, okay? So a qualia is something, it's a property that something has that we might see differently. Okay, so for instance, I'm wearing a shirt that we would all probably agree is the color blue. Blue is not objectively knowable because your valences that give blue its meaning are different from yours, and yours, and yours, right? So blue has a qualia that can only be subjectively understood, okay? Well, what does subjectivity mean? What does it mean for you to perceive a thing in the way that you do, as opposed to the way that I might, right? I think we would agree this is blue. Is your shirt blue? I think some would say it's blue and others would say it's green, right? Or they would say blue is not sufficient, it's teal, or it's turquoise, or it's whatever, right? And how many of you saw the Odyssey? Did you see the Odyssey? No? You read the Odyssey? Medium, okay. One of the things that Nolan got in his script, and that all translators get, is how the ocean is described. You know, the kind of classic descriptor, the wine dark sea, okay, is how it's described in Homer, okay? Nolan uses that word. Wine dark would not bring blue to mind, I think, for most people. It would bring a purple to mind, or a red, right? The Greeks don't really have blue as a word. So things that we would see as blue, they would see as green, or they would see as purple, or they would see in some other way, right? Our middle schoolers work through these kinds of problems. In high school, they take actual seminars on philosophical topics, philosophy of language. I taught philosophy of games, you know, philosophy of play, phenomenology, etc., right? So all of our students take philosophy, grades 5 through 12. Okay. Inquiry is at the heart of the work, asking questions. We expect students to ask and answer. I have gone 45 minutes in one of my classes saying nothing. The students, all they need me to be there to do is to answer a question. If whatever student's running the seminar, if he runs into trouble, I can get them back on course. It's not my job to be the only expert. I have my expertise, and I have my education and training, but those are limited, right? They offer things, but they hold back certain things, right? So questions are at the heart of the work, yes? And depth, okay? This is what our students say depth is. Learning you care about, you genuinely respect the problem. Defamiliarize the familiar. Very Qualia. Okay, that's a very our kids kind of approach. Okay. When we start the year, every year, we go back to this question. What does depth mean? And then we go back to what does it mean to effectively practice seminar-based learning, okay? Listen with intent, use humor appropriately and sparingly, right? Be humble, be risk-taking, these kinds of things, right? And we renegotiate it every year. It always stays basically the same, but it'll sort of inflect 15 degrees to one way or the other, depending on who the kids are, in the room. Rather than having final exams or midterm exams or really even exams of any kind, twice a year we do something called symposium, which is a 2-week academic conference that students design basically from scratch. They pick the topic or the theme, okay? The last theme that we did was called the nuclear option, essentially deliberately choosing the most extreme choice, okay? So that's the 20,000-foot framing. Students then select a topic within that, could be from any discipline. They prepare a research paper. They write that paper. They design an interactive experience for parents and grandparents and friends and their classmates and whatever, right? Every student, whether they're in the 5th grade or whether they're in the 12th grade, gets a 30-minute slot that they have to program. So they have to speak, they have to design an interactive experience, and they have to be comfortable taking questions, okay? Now, obviously, first time out, it doesn't matter how old you are. It's a creaky ship, right? It's not great, right? There's never been a great first-time symposium, but even the students in our community who are the most anxious about public speaking and the least capable when they start, after doing it 2 or 3 times, aces, easy, okay? They're good at it, okay? And, the strongest members of our community go on to elite universities and are elite, right? But the students in our community who feel like, I feel like I'm the weakest member of the community, they go out of our community, they go to whatever university they go to, and they're hanging with the strongest people in the room. Because a TED Talk, please. I've been giving TED Talks since I was 10, right? What else you got, right? Write this paper, and you have 6 weeks to do it. 6 weeks? Okay, I've written this paper, harder papers, in grade 7, in a week, right? So We do that twice a year, okay? And this is me working through a problem with this particular student. Every kid basically has one faculty member, or one faculty member has like 3 or 4 kids, and we work through it, okay? As I was saying to someone in the, I have a Qualia table in the dealer room, and I was talking to a visitor about AI. You know, this is not what this topic is about, but I was talking about AI in education. I said, I don't know. I said, at Qualia, the one thing AI is really, really good at is helping students find sources for symposium papers that are really complicated, right? I've got one student who's really into oceanography, fisheries management, fisheries policy, animal welfare, you know, at sea, that kind of thing, right? It's not a thing I know anything about, really, right? And before the advent of Claude and ChatGPT, right? I'm trying to help this kid by using Google Scholar. I mean, I have a doctorate, right? I know how to research, but finding good stuff was really difficult. Now I can ask Claude, find me 10 sources about this thing, very narrow, available in PDF and in English, by a reputable scholar, and give me those papers. I don't want you to tell me anything about them, Claude. I just want you to find them, right? It'll find stuff. And then I can look at the papers. I mean, I can read the papers, right? Yeah, this is a legitimate person. This is good, this is good, this is good, this is garbage. It should not have been captured, right? Garbage, garbage, garbage. Good, 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 right? Claude's great for that, right? We don't let our kids use it to help them interpret. That's not AI's role. But it's always been very helpful in this regard, right? So it's changed Symposium because we are now pulling papers from really obscure places that we would otherwise not have access to. So everyone does that. Seniors, the senior version is a paper of at least 20 pages with a clear philosophical through line, and for which they are responsible for essentially like a dissertation defense. You know, they have to talk in front of a small panel of adults and students, and they have to give a 30-minute plenary. So they speak to the whole school, okay? They're always pretty good, right? So that's one of the things that we do instead of exams, okay? Yeah. So one more slide. So one of the things that we talk about a lot on our campus is the difference between a compliant learner and an engaged learner. Okay, now have you guys ever seen this kind of thing? Okay, yeah. When you look at the engaged side, generally speaking, initially you think, well, that's pretty good, right? What are the challenges of having students on the right-hand side in your room? What makes working with students who are activated and engaged difficult? The compliant learner completes procedures in a timely manner. The engaged, pursuing their own train of thought regardless of task, right? We see the problem, right? All schools say, well, what we really want is, you know, an active and engaged student body, and oh yeah, we want, except sometimes we kind of don't, right? Or if you've been assigned a classroom with 25 kids in it or 30 kids in it. I've taught in schools where I had classes of 25, right? Too much on the other side, on that side. It becomes impossible to manage, right? There's a reason we keep our classes as small as they are, right? Because we want that, but to have that, it has to be managed, right? It's expensive to have that, right? Okay, yes? All right, so you know what gamification is, yeah? Game elements where game elements don't generally exist, okay? Jess? And game-based learning, which I define as you take a game and you play it right out of the box, okay? As designed, don't modify the game. Just play it as is, okay? And it has some sort of curricular benefit, okay? I'll give 3 examples now, okay? Here are 3 that you could easily play right out of the box, okay? This game is called Letters from Whitechapel. Anyone play it? No? You've played White. So good. So good. Okay. Letters from Whitechapel is Jack the Ripper. Okay. So you have one person, in this case me, regrettably about to lose the game, sadly. But you have one person playing Jack, who at the beginning of a turn commits a murder somewhere on the board, and all the other people in the room are playing policemen who are trying to capture him, okay? The police have pawns that are moving around the board visibly. The Jack player moves by hidden movement, okay? So when I move from circle 193 to 187, and I write it in a log, so I know where I am, and I know where I was earlier in the night, okay? The police don't know that. There are basically 2 boards on this board. You see the white circles and you see the black squares. Police move on the squares, Jack moves on the circles. Now, obviously, you wouldn't use this in middle school because it's a little dark, right? I use this game entirely to teach group processes, communication and collaboration, okay? The police can win only if their collaboration and cooperation is watertight, okay? It's a hard game, okay? What I do is I have 3 or 4 people at a table, I'm playing Jack, and I have everyone else in the room in a fishbowl, okay? If you're not playing, your job is to observe the people who are police and their communication strategies and their techniques, right? And then you give them feedback at the end of each turn in the hopes of helping them to improve their process. Works like gangbusters, okay? The fact that it's Jack the Ripper content, in high school, anything sort of salacious helps, right? You know, Vikings, Crusades, Jack the Ripper, yeah, it works, right? If I were doing this with a younger group, there's an earlier version of this game called Scotland Yard. It's a little bit more kind of attenuated, but it's the same idea, okay? Code names, okay? Just replace the code names content with your own. Bob's your uncle, right? Just make your own cards. Doesn't matter what your subject is. Right? Literally, it doesn't matter, okay? You have to be able to explain a thing well enough to get the person you're trying to communicate it to say the right word, okay? Well, there's a million math terms, and there's a million little words in preschool that you want students to know, and on forever, okay? What makes Codenames great as a game is not that it's password. I love Password. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But that's one word, one clue. Codenames is, what are the patterns on the board that allow you to form sort of intellectual melds? Can you see how 3 things can be described by one thing? Well, that helps really to build critical capacity. You don't know what the connections that they're going to make are. And if the connections that they make are garbage, they're going to lose the game. So they're motivated to make them really good, right? Definitely try it, okay? Whatever, it doesn't matter what your level is. It doesn't matter whether it's adults, STEM, language. I mean, if it's world language, even better, right? But But I think about it in sort of a preschool setting. Don't do 25 words, do 9, right? Just make it smaller, right? And hit the words, right? And you'll blow people's mind, okay? This game is Machikoro. You know Machikoro? No? Get it at Target, $15, okay? It's a little community builder kind of game, okay? You roll dice, you get a number, and it lets you buy components of a town, okay? Well, I had teachers redesign or play Machikoro and then have students design cards that would be like, what would be in your ideal community, okay? And so the work becomes, after playing it, design entry-level, kind of medium value and high value additional cards that would make a community really sing for you, okay? Great in lower school, right? You know, when you're doing, you know, sort of second grade, third grade, you know, coming out of family and into, you know, school and society, right? Always works, okay? Gamified learning is using game methods, but not the game itself, okay? So this is a screenshot from World of Warcraft, a game that I've played for 20 years, okay? It has virtually anything in that game you could use in your own practice to develop your practice, okay? Does anyone play this but me? You've played it, okay. You've played it in the back, okay. So what do you've got? You've got starting areas, character classes, quest chains that run from zone to zone to zone, okay? Leveling, skill leveling, trash mobs, boss mobs, dungeons, raids, achievements, you name it, right? Any one of those systems you could pull out of World of Warcraft and use it in curriculum design. Really the only thing I would not use would be like leaderboards, because public leaderboards can be a little shaming, okay? But an achievement system, I am telling you, achievements, which have no value other than star. Oh my God, they're so motivating, okay? Every time I've used them, students go bananas for it, okay? Publish 10 that have things you want students to be doing that are self-directed, okay? Publish 10 and tell them there are 10 that are hidden, okay? There are 10 that are earnable, but I'm not telling you exactly what they are, okay? But they're like these other 10. Students will go bananas to try to figure out what they are. After earning the 10 that are public, right? I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 lately. It's like crack, right? It's the worst. It's so good. I'm not even done with my first playthrough. Deep into Act 3, but I'm not done, right? And I'm like, I know how these things work, right? I've talked about and written about game-based learning and gamification for 15 years. I know exactly how this game is manipulating me. Please keep manipulating me, all the hidden achievements. Like, I can see them on Steam. I mean, I know what you're doing, right? So good. All right, so look, what do we know about games? Right, they have rules, they're arbitrary, you can win them, and what makes them fun is that stuff happens that the game did not design for or intend. Emergence, okay? You see, that's obvious in role-playing games, right? But in all three of the games that I shared with you before, Whitechapel, Codenames, Machikoro, emergent property, stuff happens that you would never in a million years have predicted. Connections, surprising communication effectiveness, whatever, right? And you can talk about those things. If you as the teacher are watching, paying attention and making you can say, what was that about, Jess? What was that about, Billy? Whatever, right? That sticks. I have former students from my earliest days who can remember this game that I did. I called it Shapeland. It has another name Star Power, something like that, okay? It's basically about the creation of an industrial class society. How does industrialization create its class structure, okay? You give everyone a draw of 5 chips out of a bag that has a bunch of random poker chips in it, all with different values depending on what you pull. Trading to try to maximize what you've got. At the end, they turn in the chips, I count them, put them in order, most to last. The top 25% are in the circles. They're the elite class. Bottom 25% are in the triangles. They're the lower class. And everyone else is a square in the middle, okay? Then we pick again. But in the second round and in all subsequent rounds, all of the gold chips, which are the best chips, are available only to the elite class. Inherited wealth, right? Property, things like that, once you have it, you generally hold it, right? So they get the good chips and everyone else gets chips, right? And then you trade again, but the elite class gets to make a rule that's binding on all classes. It usually only takes 2 rounds before the other classes revolt, right? Right. I have never, and it doesn't matter whether the students in the elite class are the most magnanimous, the most democratic, the least, the most hurtful, it doesn't matter. They always make grossly arbitrary, self-sustaining rules that are wildly unjust, always. And go. Students from 30 years ago were like, oh, I'm still outraged about Shapeland. I'm like, dude, that was 1998. Doesn't matter. It was unjust. Like, did you get the lesson, right? They don't remember me lecturing or, cool map exercises or anything. They remember the game, right? So pick a game-based strategy. Doesn't matter what it is. And weave it into your planning for this year. Do it a half dozen times. Ask kids what they think, right? I did a podcast for years on game-based learning with a colleague from my former school. And her point was students will always forgive a lesson that doesn't quite work, where it's clear you're swinging for something interesting. Doesn't matter that it didn't work. You were trying something, and we learned something, right? Better than you just giving us another worksheet, right? I mean, sometimes a worksheet day is good. It's like, I don't have time. I don't have the bandwidth to think, right? Just give me something to do that's productive, but slow order, right? But every now and again, every couple of weeks, let's swing for something hard or that is risky. We don't have no idea, right? I tell my colleagues at Qualia all the time, my expectation is that you're swinging every day. And if it works, come and tell me why it worked so that I can steal that. And if it doesn't work, come and tell me so that when I do it, I at least know why it didn't work for you, right? I've said to teachers all the time, if you had come to me before you taught that lesson that turned out to be a disaster and said, what do you think? I would have said, can't fail, perfect, proceed, disastrous, right? We've all had those experiences, right? On this campus, the whole point is swing, okay? And we do a lot of game-based learning, so we swing a lot, right? One more? One more? Okay, now, I've got a big, long thing that I'm not going to have the opportunity to do with you, but if you want the slides, I'll send them to you. If you want to talk to me about designing essentially a full, like, kind of boss campaign, okay, that would end with students defeating a boss, okay, I can share that, and I would be happy to share that with you, okay? A professional development we did a few years ago was basically breaking our mission down into actionable components, which we could then design quests around. Yes? Okay, one more. Okay, so here's an example. Remember, if you were teaching during COVID, okay, we had, virtual school, right? One of the things we did at the school that I was working for at the time was, because it was very, the lockdown in Orange County happened like on the Monday before our spring break was to start. So we designed what we called quarantine quests. Every day there was a new quest during spring break because families couldn't go anywhere, right? We had a head, heart, hands kind of mission approach. So we designed things for students to do during their break that were oriented to mission. So you think about your own mission as an educator and your school's mission. Pick 2 or 3 actionable components from that mission. Okay, what can I do to really build that? Okay, whatever it happens to be. Okay, drive that as your planning strategy. It'll be better for your kids. You'll feel more fulfilled. Your kids will know that you're making a commitment to trying something maybe a little different, okay? And it doesn't matter whether your kids are neurodivergent or like every other kid or extremely gifted or significant learning. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they're in preschool or whether they're 40 years old in college. It just doesn't matter, right? If they see you attempting to do these kind of things and to try these kind of methods, can't go wrong. Okay. Since we're short on time, I'll go straight to questions, comments, and thoughts. Anything?
I was curious about in that Jack the Ripper activity.
Yeah.
Oftentimes in those cooperative games, one person realizes that they can use all the pieces. How do you make sure that there's communication happens?
Well, in the first round, I don't do that at all, okay? I let the students, if you want to give up your voice in the first round, that's your business, okay? But anyone who alpha games a cooperative like that is going to be immediately called out for it by the people in the fishbowl. They're like, you talk too much. And you're not right all the time. So you need to settle down. And you two, who I know are smart, you didn't say anything. Why have you given up your voice? So that's what we talk about, right? No, I want that to happen because it then leads to an honest assessment of what didn't work in the group, right? Alpha gamers are one of the challenges that kind of a player has often is that their clock, their sort of mental, their CPU runs really fast. So they make connections from A to J, right? Other people are going to get from A to J, but their CPU runs a little slower, right? An alpha gamer's like, J, dude, You just have to breathe. You're not the only person in the room, right? They have to learn how to do that, or they're annoying to work with. And people who are slow and deliberate, they need to learn that your process is as good as anyone else's. Trust in it, and use your voice. But you've got to just let it roll, right, as it rolls. So that's what I do, right? Anything else? Thoughts, comments? Yeah.
What do achievements look like in the company? Is it something you like track digitally or on the wall?
Yeah. For me, it's digital. Okay. So I have like a Google Doc, in sheets, right? And I will publish, what they are, how you achieve them. Okay. And if someone, if the first person to get it, I will point out, hey, you just got a class first, right? You're the first person on this server to get this achievement, right? Good for you. Yeah, let's give some love to this person, right? But then everyone else can earn it as well, right? And oftentimes what I'll say is, by the end of the term, you need to have earned 5, 7, 10 achievements, okay? It doesn't matter to me what they are, okay? When I'm doing it in history, it's often, read this kind of thing, and this kind of thing, and this kind of thing. Make an argument that has this kind of feature, or this kind of feature, or this kind of feature, right? The last course I taught was called Contextualizing Contemporary Problems, World History. So we did democratic backsliding, and we did Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Palestine, right? In democratic backsliding, an achievement was assess a country. We had an assessment tool, okay? Assess this country that appears to be in good order democratically. Assess 5 of its institutions to see how true that is, right? Okay, well, what is that going to be? That's going to be, you're looking at Estonia, Finland, Canada, countries that appear to be in very good order, right? And that are democratic, okay? Well, what about democratic-ish countries that maybe are, right? Hungary, Turkey, right? Places like that, right? Well, what if you use that to assess a country that has no democratic culture, okay? Botswana has a very well-established democracy. Right next door, Zimbabwe, very poor democratic record, okay? But use the tools, right? And the achievements were like, okay, using different kinds of lenses, right? Picking different kinds of countries, right? In math, it might be using a particular kind of formula or strategy in 4 or 5 different ways, right? All of which would be, known to you, right? But not necessarily known to me, right? So that's how I would do it, right? And take feedback at the end of a term, right? If it's a quarter, if it's a trimester, semester, right? We're going to try this. And if you earn 10, I'm going to bump your grade by 1 step. If you earn these, I'm going to, if 20 people in the room earn this, we're going to have pizza on the first Monday back in January. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it could literally be, earn this, and I'm going to give you the ability to draw a piece of candy out of a pumpkin. And they'll go bananas for that, right? Right, I mean, literally, it's, or nothing. You get a star on a piece of paper. Oh my God, it's the best day ever, right? Yeah. So, I'm in the dealer room if you want to talk to me at greater length, or if you want to learn more about Qualia. And thanks so much. Okay, bye for now.